I mentioned
that one. Okay. Right, so this is a quick chat about using the ESP32 S3 Nano. So why would you want to use one of these? Well, if you're using an Arduino in a standard UKMARS bot, it's pin compatible, so you can just drop it straight in and all the pins line up beautifully. It's got the full 8 A to D converters, unlike Picos and all those horrible Raspberry Pi things. And they're nice 12 microsecond ones at 12-bit resolutions, so they're fast and they should be accurate. It's got a 32-bit dual-core processor that runs at 240 megahertz, which I think is 15 times faster than the Arduino runs. So that's quite a useful little bit of speed increase. And it's also got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi already on the board. It can use the Arduino IDE, so your code from the Arduino can be ported across fairly easily, or it'll run MicroPython, and it costs less than a tenner. So I'll go out and buy one, because I think this is the ideal replacement for your Arduino in your standard UKMARS bot. Everybody impressed? Good. All right, so what you need to do to use it, it's a bit like the Cytron Maker Nano modification. It's a 3.3 volt CPU, so you have to do a couple of tweaks to the board. Basically, you join the 3.3 and the 5 volt lines together, and you knock out the 5 volt output from the Arduino or from the ESP pin, which is basically knocking out this one out of the connector. This is an old slide I used, so it's got the wrong chip in there. It should be the CMOS one, or the SN, whatever it is. And that's basically, finally, make R7, which is the thing that monitors the battery voltage, knock it up to 22K so that you don't push more than 3.3 volts onto the battery sensing pin. Okay, so so basically that's the first bit. Right, for the sensor boards, what I suggest is for line following, you just reduce a few of the resistors for the LEDs down in size from 68 to 33. Knock out R1 if you were using it before, and that will give you 32 milliamps through the LEDs, which is plenty for line following. For wall following and maze solving, I actually found that using the standard 10 ohm LED resistors, I got enough light going out and enough coming back, especially with the increased sensitivity of the A to D converters. That was fine. I didn't need to modify anything else on those. Okay, so if you want to put Thonny on, or if you want to use Python on it, it's a little bit more complicated to load it, because it's not a straight UTF file that you just load up, but it's fairly straightforward, and the next few slides just give you the instructions for this, and anybody wants a copy of these, then just yell to me and I'll give you those. So first of all, if you want Thonny, okay, well that's a standard install. Right, then basically you go to your MicroPython download page, and the key thing is that you're downloading a .bin file instead of a UTF file. Okay, so it says what do you want to do with it, so you save it. You then have to get the device into boot mode. Now a lot of PCs have got a little boot pin on them, and you press the boot pin. This one unfortunately hasn't got a boot pin. So what you have to do is you have to temporarily connect together the B1 pin to ground, then you plug your USB cable in and it sticks it into boot mode. And once you've done that, you should then be able to see it in Device Manager with the COM port, and once you've got the COM port, you can then see the device itself. Other ESP32 boards, a lot of them do actually have a boot pin on them, and in that case you can just hold the boot pin down while you're putting the USB cable in to do it. But as I say, it's worth noting that this is different, and so with not having a boot pin, you need to do this little tweak. Once you've done it once, then you're fine. So what you then do is you then need to get the ESP tool. You download that with pip. Then when that's installed, you then erase the flash on the ESP device. That instruction will do that. If it works, you'll see something like that coming out. Once you've done that, you can then download the Python bin file onto the ESP, and again that instruction will do it, and again make sure you put the full path to where the bin file is, and that'll do that. If that works, you'll see something like that. It says, yeah, I'm connected, I've loaded it up, I'm happy, and it sorts it all out. Right, so now you just disconnect your USB lead. When you plug it back in again, you should now see a different COM port, which is interesting. Fire up Funny, in the interpreter tab, stick MicroPython ESP32 up there, and it'll find the USB device on the COM port. Click OK, and then you'll get your standard, but at the bottom it'll say, yeah, I found it, I'm happy with that. Right, main difference between this and other versions of MicroPython is that it uses the GPIO numbers instead of the pin numbers in the pin commands. So here are the ones that you're going to need for standard UKMARSBOT. So these will be the pin numbers that correspond to the ones that you would have used on the standard UKMARSBOT. But I say they are the, although it says pin, they are actually the numbers which are the GPIO numbers if you look up the pin connections direction. So there's a load of the motor ones. Those are the ones for the encoders and for some of the sensors. And again, once you change those over, pretty much everything else ought to run. If you want to set up the encoders in MicroPython, I think this is fairly standard stuff anyway, but that's to set up the encoders on the IRQs, and I just have a couple of routines in there that say, okay, yeah, when those get called, they just add one to a count on the left count or the right count. And obviously you get the 2 counts because you get the 2 pulse trains from each encoder. Okay, if you want to use Bluetooth, send data between ESP32 S3 boards, you can do that as well. I basically took another ESP32 board, not the Nano, and I just asked, can't remember if it was Copilot or Gemini, I said, how do you do this? And it said, this is what you need to do. And it just gives you a bit of code, which you put in, and it runs quite happily. The only thing you need to do is you do need to just download a file from the internet onto the ESP32, and to do that you then have to set up the Wi-Fi on the device, but again it's only a couple of commands to do that. So this gets your Bluetooth device, your ESP32 connected to the Wi-Fi. Once you've done that, that's your Wi-Fi there. You run your Wi-Fi connect code. Once you've done that, then again I put some stuff on the website here if anybody wants to actually get the code to do that. And you'll also find the code for sending and receiving in MicroPython using the Bluetooth. What this code is, it's just a little sample bit of code. It generates some numbers on one side, fires them across to the external device, and it reads them and prints them out on the other side. Okay, so yeah, so this is again just taken straight literally off of my PC. Says it's advertising, it's sending data, and then down the other end you've got it seeing, receiving it, connecting it, and then receiving it. Okay, and that's it. Anything else you want to know about ESP32 S3 Nanos? And again, make sure if you get one, it is that precise specification. Then come and see me, or I have a couple of them down there, one which is installed on a line follower, and one which is installed on a maze solver, and I'll be having a little play with those later this afternoon. Okay, yes?
Are the pins same as the old one that you used to use, the one with all the LEDs on it? Or are they completely different on the ESP, the pin numbers?
The pin numbers, are not the same as on the Arduino.
Yes.
Right. But the actual pin connections.
Yeah, because that's on the PCB. Yeah, but the pin numbers that you were listing there, I'm just interested if they were the same as because you used to use a...
Cytron Nano.
Yeah, the Cytron thing.
No, the Cytron Nano uses again pin numbers. The ESP32 uses GPIO number. So that's why it is useful to, you can just get the chart and look them up and say, oh, pin number, whatever, what's the GPIO number next to it, and just use that number. But again, I've listed all that, the common ones on there and the ones it just took me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, all the code looked like it was using Wi-Fi rather than Bluetooth. Have you got code that uses Bluetooth? Wi-Fi?
Yeah, no, the Wi-Fi bit was to download the Bluetooth module onto the ESP32.
Right. Yeah.
Then that the code I was running was literally just using Bluetooth BLA. And it just firing some stuff off and then enough to the other one. And I did it with the Wi-Fi disconnected. I only had it connected just to download that one. And once you've downloaded it once, you don't need it then afterwards. Yeah. Okay.
So forgive me if I wasn't paying full attention. If you were to, so you were using the 2040 on the Megan Nano.
Yeah.
And now you're using the ESP32. Would you say that that is a permanent switch to the ESP32 over the RP2040? If so, why?
There's a pro and a con. The pro is that you've got 8 to D converters, so you can use on the line follower. You can use all of the LEDs and sensors in the row, 4 in the middle and the 2 at the side, and still have your battery voltage connection. So I think that is really useful. The only thing that it hasn't got, which would be quite nice, the Cytron Nano has got a buzzer on it, so you can do beeps and you can play tunes, which the kids love doing in school. And it's also got 2 multicolour LEDs, RGB LEDs. So again, you've got all the colour combinations for saying what you want to do. Because the Cytron Nano didn't have as many extra dict converters, I couldn't use the 4-way switch either. So with this one, I can go back to using the 4-way switch to select programs, which is an advantage. So definitely an advantage in terms of the basic compatibility with the Arduino Nano, and being able to use that extra functionality, particularly on the line follower, and having the extra sensors that you don't get with either the Pico or the Cytron Nano.
So that's like a yes then.
The other thing I think is that's not available, is it? The old Cytron one. You can't get them anymore.
Oh,
I was thinking less of the board than your chin as any. So whether it's worth migrating if you were a Raspberry Pi RP2040 or fan, right? You're saying.
So that's the interesting question. How much the program do you need to change to get it to work, apart from the pin numbers?
Having done the pin numbers, there seem to be some slight differences on what it assumed with some global variables, and I ended up just putting a few variables at the top.
So that's a slight difference in the implementation.
Yeah, but pretty much everything else, I just literally moved the code across, and I would say at least 98% of it just runs straight as it was. Yeah.
It's a huge selling point for MicroPython, really, isn't it? It is. Okay.
A question on the Bluetooth. Were you finding if you streamed any amount of data, it was impacting you? Was it slow or fast or?
I hadn't had enough experience. I've literally only got this device about 6 weeks ago. I've done 2 ports across and all the setup. So I've only just got them working. So I haven't done any speed tests on Bluetooth TLA, and that will certainly worth me doing.
Interesting to see.
I mean, I only had it connected at a relatively low speed anyway when I was doing the connector test. I just wanted proof that you could do it more than anything else at that stage. I mean, the other thing is, because I use MicroPython, I don't actually find much need for Bluetooth, because you've got the file system and you've got oodles of space, and anything you want to log, you just stick in the file, and at the end you just read straight out the new PC. So would you actually need the Bluetooth? Put it there if you want it.
Okay. Anybody else? The built-in SPIPS filing system on the ESP32 is quite handy. It just uses Flash and it's plug it in with Thonny in it.
I assume he has to take, like the Raspberry Pi Picos, it probably has to take the flash chip out of XIP mode. You can't write one in your XIP mode. So when you take it out of XIP mode, it's going to take several milliseconds to write the file. But if you cache it RAM to the end of the run, you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, basically that's what I do. I just store everything what I'm running in arrays, in using dimensional arrays only. And then as soon as you get to a stop point, whether it's because you stopped or you've got to the end of a run or you've crashed or whatever, then I'll just whap it onto a file at that stage. Seems to work fine with me. Yeah.
It's worth remembering that while Bluetooth has an intrinsic limitation, just old-fashioned Bluetooth classic on that, 2 megabits, right? That's what's going on over the air. Clearly might be a quarter of that by the time he's finished with the overhead.
I mean, theoretically, you get 50k a second out of it, but I've never managed that. Yeah, when I was doing further, that was like 10k a second.
So BLE is in terms of streaming data, once you've got all that sorted out, BLE is intrinsically less capable than Bluetooth Classic.
You might be able to get Bluetooth serial upright column running on the S3. Pretty sure you can.
I discovered only the other day that it's a really simple thing to do in C++. Much easier than I thought. There's a hybrid that sets all that for you and just bangs that out like serial port.
Well, one of the problems I've been having with the Bluetooth Classic is just the reliability of Bluetooth data, serial data coming out. It loses quite a lot on my home.
Sometimes you need to put delays in pacing it. It's as much to do. I'm not PC, is it?
I'm not sending a lot of data out in the scheme of things, but it seems to lose back.
Or might be like the Bluetooth Classics. I'm going to whinge you about Bluetooth. A bit late is after.
I can't send that much.
That file tell me it's somebody else.
I picture going just 0K without Bluetooth.